All right, so today we are going to talk a little bit about focus and concentration. And this is really geared toward anyone. It's not just students. I know we're kind of right now in a back to school mode. It is August here. New Mexico goes back to school early. In fact, am I right? Did I see that? I saw some people posting about kids going back to high school today. And is that right? Susan's shaking her head. Yes. Wow.
Yes, and some charter schools did too.
Yeah, I know some kids actually started last week, which seemed, or like, I guess, no, they were preparing for this week to like start this week, 1st of August. I was gone last week, so to me, it's already like mid-August.
Right. So, for a lot of people, this is a concern, but really anything that we're talking about when it has to do with all of these topics, actually, this also works for anyone. Right? We're able to help. These ideas aren't just for children, is what I'm trying to say, right? This is going to work for you as an adult. This will work for seniors. This will work for children of all ages. We're going to just kind of talk about some easy solutions as well as some habits, because I really think that so much today, we find ourselves in a situation where people are looking at focus and concentration as its own sort of bubble, right? This thing that, you focus on, or sorry, lack of a better word, you're paying attention to in the moment, as opposed to thinking about what are you doing to set yourself up for this to be a successful time, right? Focus and concentration for most people, not everyone, and we're going to talk about that more often than not, is a result of everything that's led up to that moment, right? How well did you sleep? What did you eat? Are you hydrated? Is your nutrition correct? All of these things come together to create, that sort of good moment. So think of it like being an athlete, right? If you are training for something, you're going to prepare yourself for that great moment of, we're in the Olympics right now, right? Of that moment of I'm going for it. You have to really think about the same things, that's muscle strength and getting yourself ready and getting, all of your ducks in a row with that. Well, when we're talking about our brain being to sort of fire on all cylinders, we have the same thing. So you don't want to be accidentally preparing a cake when what you need is a meatloaf. I know that sounds silly, bear with me, but it's true. If you're adding sugar and you're adding all these things together and you're putting together this beautiful situation for the day and a half leading up to maybe the ACT or a big exam or a big meeting at work or a presentation that you need to give, you're really going to find yourself walking into the room unprepared. And at that point, what are you going to do? You can't turn a cake into a meatloaf, right? You can try. And this is where most people start to ask themselves, what can I do to improve focus and concentration? They're picturing that moment, or they're in that last stage where they're standing there holding a cake and they need to turn it into a meatloaf. And it's like, no, that's not how it works, guys. Let's get into this. Oh, hold on. Let me let Miss Joanne in. Let's get into this way earlier. And those are some of the things I want to talk about today, as well as some great tools that can be used, certainly to have in your pocket, to have in your bag, that are going to show up for you. But, don't minimize the importance of everything, all of the ingredients of your day that's leading up. Don't forget that that's all playing a really big role in whether or not you're doing well with your focus and able to concentrate. So here's the sort of the meat of it. So natural inclination, we all have a natural inclination for our ability or our talent with focus and concentration. I think we probably are all very familiar with people who, the squirrel, right? That those, it's kind of a comical thing, right? People who really can't or struggle with being able to focus or concentrate for any period of time. But let's be real, we probably also know people who hyper focus, right? Or kind of obsess, or maybe they can't get anything done in a timely manner because they've deep dived on it so hard that everything else falls to the wayside, right? I mean, that's a really common thing too. But this is a spectrum situation. And those two things are two opposite ends of that spectrum. If you are sitting in either one of those positions, that's really where you need to go and seek some help. Really go and talk to someone about, hey, I'm having a problem here. This is the problem. If it's impacting your quality of life or what you feel is your potential or that of your loved one, definitely seek some, help for that. What we're going to talk about is the natural tools, the habits, the things that you can do in your day-to-day life that can help to move that needle. And I do speak from experience here. I have kids who have fallen at either end of that spectrum, and we have really employed, natural tools. To our goal has always been, what can we do to sort of, naturally, if you will, through habits, through, nutrition, through all of these different sleep, all of these things, to sort of move that spectrum needle a little bit more toward the center, so that when we do look for intervention style help, it's kind of less, right? It's less impactful, or it's, I don't need quite the same amount, if you will, right? And in our case, it's worked out beautifully, because by doing so, we've ended up not having to really do any type of, chemical intervention. Okay, let's leave it there. That doesn't mean we weren't doing anything. We're doing a lot of things, but we're doing things that really create coping skills, really create new habits, and that are long-term solutions that can take us, and in this case, my sons, into their adulthood, right? Without having to find themselves one day going, now what, right? Now I'm still here and I'm struggling with my ability to really maintain focus, or to really successfully communicate, or be successful academically, or, in a business setting. Okay. So these are the things that I really want to talk about. Again, I'm going to say it again. Oh, Joanna's trying so hard to get in, bless her heart. Natural inclination. If you have anything where you are finding yourselves on any of the far ends of the spectrum, or at someone you love, definitely seek that help. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a little bit more of the average person here. However, these things will work for them. So first thing, nutrition. Everything that we are, right? You are what you eat. You hear it all the time. We've heard it since we were little kids. But if we're fueling ourselves with things that really are not setting our brain up for the ability to focus and concentrate, we're not going to be able to focus and concentrate, right? If we're, I don't think that the athletes in the Olympics right now are eating a cake before they go and run the 100-yard dash. They're setting themselves up for success. The same is true when you talk about, I have kids who have, competed for years in pretty high level academic, stressful competitions, right? We really have to go into that treating them and their brain, like they are athletes. We have to focus on things like hydration. Hydration is huge. It's been shown that in less than 2 hours, the adrenaline that you feel in any pressure situation can absolutely dehydrate you to the point where your brain is basically, fog mush. You're just not going to be able to perform. Adrenaline starts way before that exam or that presentation. It's pretty much from the time you wake up that day, if not the day before, worrying and getting yourself pumped up about it. So really focusing on hydration can be a huge support for you. It's water, people. It's easy, right? Add some, lemon or something. If you're not, I'm not a water person. Okay. I love lemon, grapefruit, tangerine in my water. Clementine. Whoo, yes, you can get some clementine this month. Put that clementine, was that last month? That was, yeah, anyway, have your clementine, right? And use it, because whatever gets you to drink more water is going to be really, really important. Sugar, reducing sugar is huge. Another thing that dehydrates, it also causes a rush and a crash. For some people, stimulants can be positive or they can be negative because of the crash. If you are someone who really kind of falls into that sort of struggles, with focus, meaning you're kind of along the squirrel, if you will, end of the spectrum, sometimes stimulants can be really helpful. And it seems funny. It seems like the opposite, right? This is something you're going to want to really talk with us about, or talk with your professional about. This is why you have a wellness advocate, so you can work out the details. So if you have questions about, hey, is this a situation where, and when I say stimulant, I don't mean like drugs, I mean like some caffeine. All right. So let me just clarify, right? A little dark chocolate, a little maybe a cup of coffee or a nice cup of black tea or something. That's all I mean here. But reach out so that we can really help you to, you know, talk through and work through and come up with a protocol. Of course, something that's written up that you can take to your health professional to kind of work up a good plan for. Alcohol and drugs, both of which not good, guys. You know, you're not going to get anywhere. A foggy brain is a foggy brain. And if this is something, you know, if you have a big presentation and the night before you're getting ready for it and you're nervous and stressed and you're drinking some wine, not the best option. Okay. Really, really think about, you know, it's dehydrating for one, it's causing brain fog for two, it's harder to recover from the next day. So really think about the choices you're making here. Diet. So I have some great things about diet. If you're talking about kids, especially, breakfast is huge. All right. You don't want to eat something too heavy because it can kind of make you tired. You really want to think about, a good healthy breakfast that has in it, you know, good protein, healthy fats. You want some really good high fiber whole grains in a breakfast that's simple and easy to do. We've been posting recipes all day today, and we will continue to do so throughout the month for some great ideas for healthy, easy breakfasts, because whether you're going to work or you're going to school, this is going to help set you up for success. Your brain needs the fuel in order for the day to launch correctly, right? You really want to also look at things like fish, high omega-3s. Those fatty acids are hugely important, supports memory, supports all of the different ways in which, you know, you really find yourself able to sit down and knock something out, right? Fish can be hugely wonderful. So there is a great thing, and I'm not going to remember the name of it. It's a sustainable fish list that I know you can get it from, most aquariums have it, and I'll find the link for it and I will post it. But it is a wonderful list where the fish is sustainable, but also like low mercury, so on and so forth. So if you have fish concerns, get that list and start choosing fish that are on that list, right? Nuts, and yes, dark chocolate. I know we have a lot of chocolate fans out there. A great antioxidant with vitamin E. Avocados, that monounsaturated fat, right? Which is a good fat, good for your brain, good for your body. And things like blueberries. Simple, right? A little yogurt with some blueberries. That's a great little breakfast to walk out the door, all right? I do want to throw out here in this portion the idea of looking at things like allergies. Diagnosed allergies can sometimes show up and you find out, wow, that's been the problem this whole time. And I'm glad Susan and Diane are here because they will remember this. My son, turns out, yeah, can't have gluten, can't have dairy. And people were telling me that for real. I'm not even gonna, people were telling me that for years. And I just thought they were nuts. I don't know why. Now it makes perfect sense to me, but at the time I just could not understand how there was a connection. Granted, this was 17, 18 years ago, but nonetheless, now it's pretty common for us to understand that connection between diet and what's happening with our children. But I mean, back then I think we all knew like, oh, sugar makes them crazy. But other than that, nobody thought about it. Well, it turns out he cannot have those things. So when he was 8.5, almost 9, a doctor told me you really need to take him off gluten and dairy and see what happens. And I kind of was like, well, I don't, I mean, it's embarrassing, but I was hesitant, and he was like, what do you have to lose? Just take him off of it for a while. And I'm like, well, it's all he eats. And then I remember the moment he was like, well, that's concerning. Like that should have you worried. And it was like, oh yeah, I guess that is a little weird, right? So we took him off of gluten. He was off of gluten for about 6 months when we really started to see, it takes that long for it to get out of your system, when we really started to see some major changes in his focus. My son that year completed 3 years of math. This is what I know Susan and Diana probably remember. 3 years of math in 1 year. Okay. It's not that he suddenly was a super person. He always had the talent for math, but he could not focus on it because he was, dealing with sort of this opioid response to the gluten in his system. And so I would suggest really looking at allergies and even some sort of like mystery allergies, which are things, I'm not talking, he does not, his throat isn't closing up. He's not having a rash. this is a different, more of an intolerance. But for him, it made a huge impact on his ability to focus. It was enormous. And I mean, what's interesting is, you know, of course, for him, he was grumpy about it, but I mean, it wasn't, I think it was maybe he was 8 months into it. And I was like, look, if you don't want to do it, you don't want to do it, because I'm tired of arguing with you about it. And he, you know, he had to come to the responsibility. He was like, you know what? I really hate the way I feel when I have gluten. And so I'm just not going to do it. And I have never had to worry about it at all. He really on his own avoids it because he doesn't want to have anything to do with it. Fishwatch.gov is the resource for the like sort of sustainable, healthy fish. Thank you so much, Susan, for putting that. Or fishwatch.org. Yeah, it might be, it's or seafoodwatch.org. So there's a couple, but it's the same thing, right? It's that list, right? That's going to help you. So look up either one of those, seafoodwatch.org or fishwatch.gov. It's the same kind of deal. I know watch is in it. And you know what's really cool is you can order a little wallet thing that we have. My husband keeps it in his wallet. So when we're out and about and like you're in a random restaurant, you can kind of pull it out and look at the little list on your in your wallet. Clearly there's probably an app that we have just not, I don't know. But nonetheless, look at allergies and look at those things, or maybe start thinking about, hey, I've noticed when you eat this, this happens. I noticed, so on and so forth. So I really wanted to throw that out there in this conversation. The next thing is supplements. You know, it's really, really hard these days. I mean, you would have to work hard, because I have worked hard for many years to come up with a diet that really fulfilled what is required for our family to be healthy and strong and to get the nutrients we need. And then, you know, we did organic. We did, you know, nothing, we would eat nothing that wasn't found within 100 miles of our home. No fast food, nothing, you know, I mean, nothing processed. It had to be, you know, it couldn't be more than 2 steps away, like processed wise, like, you know, nothing that was like pre-made, if you will. I mean, we've tried everything. And then at the end of the day, you find out, well, you know what? Even when I'm getting my wonderful organic produce and my beautiful grass-fed beef and all of these things, because of the depletion of our soil, I'm still not getting all of the nutrients. And can we be real? There's no way I could get the poundage of vegetables into these children that was necessary in order for them to be reaching those daily requirements. So I finally, since I started working with and learning about doTERRA and their supplements, you know, before that we did Nordic Naturals and they were okay, like they were good. So if you can get those, great. But if you can, which you can, because you are watching this now, get the doTERRA supplements. Has been and will be, it is a game changer. I know everyone watching now, at least who's here attending the class and who are not even on the screen, have had that experience. And I just cannot say enough about it. We'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. So then personal choice. And honestly, guys, this is sort of the, you know, we started in nutrition with that recipe that we were building, right? We don't want to show up with the cake when what we need is a meatloaf, right? These personal choices are exactly that. These are choices that we make, or things that we need to work on. Sleep. You know, we all know how it is. I just had a late night over the weekend, and Sunday I was like useless because I was up late and I need sleep. Like if I don't sleep my little 8 hours, I'm a little bit of useless, right? I just can't focus. It's hard for me to get anything done. I have to work twice as hard to do the same thing as when I get my full 8 hours of sleep. And so I know that about myself, but I'm 50 years old. Does my 13-year-old know that about himself? No, but I know that about him. And I'm able to really help by saying, shut it off. We have to have the bedtime. And honestly, I have to go in and wake him up. You know, he's the only kid I've ever had who's like a sleeper. I think he might secretly be a Velasquez, but you know, because there's sleeper people over there. Because all my others, but my little 13-year-old boy, he is a sleeper, and he will go to bed at, you know, 11, which is late, but you know, respectable on a weekend for a 13-year-old. And the next day it's like 11 o'clock, 11:30. And I'm like, dude, you got to get up. And he's like, well, I'm sleepy. I'm like, what is with it? He is growing though, right? So take into account things like growth spurts, because that's a sleepy time. But, you know, a good amount of sleep. Teenagers do need more sleep. They need more sleep than us adults, and they need more sleep than our babies even. Like, they really need a tremendous amount of sleep. So it's challenging for them, especially when they're starting school. And so many high schools and middle schools are having them like in desks at 7:45 a.m. This is challenging. So really look at sleep. If you have issues with sleep, let's start talking about some great tools that we have. Serenity, Vetiver, you know, getting together a really good diffusion plan for you and your family. Screen time. Oh, it's like the nightmare of this whole quarantine, right? If you weren't struggling with screen time before this, I bet you are now, because this is how our kids have all been able to connect with each other. And let's be real, it's how we are able to connect with each other. We're either watching YouTube, hanging out on Zoom. It's the way FaceTime, you know, I haven't seen my mother in almost 2 years. And, you know, the way I see her is FaceTime. I'm always kind of dealing with and on my computer or my phone. And my kids are the same way, and I can't blame them. But then you start talking about things like gaming and so forth, and you really start getting into a different area. We found ourselves in a situation with our oldest son when he was younger that we had to make sort of rules about when games could be played. And I couldn't do it on, like, once your homework was done. You know, we've always homeschooled, so homework is kind of a weird thing. But once your lessons were done, you could play a game, because he would like basically, you know, I'm going to just say half-ass his way through, because I don't know how else to describe it, through his lessons so that he could get to the point where he could do a game. So then we realized, okay, no, so we could do weekends. So then we did weekends. Well, Saturday and Sunday, you know, yeah, he could have, it was his free time. He could game, connect with his friends, do his thing. Well, then it turned out Monday morning, he was a train wreck. He was not able to focus and get anything done. So then we went down to just Saturdays, and Saturday became game day. Because if I let him be on his games on Sunday, he was still a mushy brained pain in the butt on Monday. It took him that long to recover from that type of stimulation in order for his brain to be ready to sit down, be focused, and get work done. So start noting things like that. I'm not saying that your kid will be that way or that you are that way, but pay attention to how these things are impacting you and your ability to focus and concentrate and comprehend. I mean, comprehension is another aspect which falls into this category, but man, it's frustrating. I know for myself, it's frustrating to read a whole bunch and then realize you were thinking about, you know, RuPaul's Drag Race instead of what you were supposed to be reading in your book, right? So it's something to really start paying attention to. All right. Stimulation, too much stimulation. So if you're trying to create an environment, which we're going to talk about next, but if you're trying to create a situation where people are able to focus, you know, I know that my kids, for instance, can't have any music on that has words. Weird, I know. So we can do, you know, like classical music. They do great. But if there's music with words, they start paying attention to the music instead of whatever we're working on. So think about things like that. And for a lot of people, I'm just going to throw it out there, visual stimulation can really be very, very distracting. All right. I'm talking too much stuff on the walls. I mean, have you seen my office? Clearly, I don't suffer from that, but I have one kid who does, and they need a very sort of straightforward environment. For a long time, for lessons, we would use the a science fair board, if you will. You know what I'm talking about? Like a science fair board that created sort of a cubby of quiet and calm, and that worked. So I know it's silly, but it worked, and I was happy to do it, and they were happy because they got to decorate it however they wanted. The environment in general, same thing. So then support tools, which is what we're going to talk about next. So any thoughts or questions on any of this so far? Everyone seems okay. I think that it's just really important to be able to understand that if you've waited until you're in a situation where you need to be focused and you haven't done anything to sort of set that up for success, it's almost too late, right? So, you know, the interventions that you bring into play at that point, you know, I don't know. I've worked with so many people who, you know, kids having a hard time at school. And then we really start dissecting, and it's like, well, you know, they had an egg McMuffin and a Coke for breakfast, and their lunch had candy, and, you know, they're getting home and they're allowed to have game time before they do homework. Well, those are all really hard things. I mean, look, I get it. I mean, I get it, but I feel like no one could focus in that situation, right? Go ahead, Susan. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I think, you know, this goes back to a lot of what we say in classes in terms of being intentional about things and kind of laying a foundation, right?
Yeah.
And starting with that baseline thing, you know, beginning of good nutrition and good rest and good stress management and all those kinds of things that are going to help the tools, when we get to the tools, work better, because you have that foundation, you know, of kind of intentional living.
Yeah, I absolutely. So often, you know, what happens is that for a lot of parents too, I mean, when we're talking about kids, is they will find themselves, you know, going to a meeting with a teacher, a parent teacher conference, and all of a sudden the teacher's like, look, you know, Timmy can't sit still. He's bouncing off the walls. I can't get him to get anything done. Or, you know, it takes Timmy 3 hours to get something done as opposed to the rest of the class because he's just way obsessing over this. And that's their first sort of, you know, moment of, oh my gosh, focus and concentration is something that is a challenge. But, you know, when you start pursuing that, oftentimes what happens is the pursuit focuses completely on interventions at that point, as opposed to, well, let's backtrack. Let's go the other way. Let's look at what has happened that's leading up. And obviously you're not going to just change diet. You know, if this is, again, something that is a natural inclination issue, but you can move the needle quite far and then bring in the interventions, right? And there's just, I feel like it's empowering to know that there is a lot that you can do. It's not completely out of your hands. Is it a little overwhelming? Yes. But at the same time, once you do so, you realize, wow, that was way easier than the other options, right? Or we were able to sort of do it at a lesser level, you know, whatever interventions were required. And so, yeah, I agree. It's about being intentional. It's about really looking at the whole picture, right? Okay. So let's talk about some support tools that I happen to love, and I think a lot of us here like. So supplements, we have the A to Z chewables, which are fantastic. This is a great tool to use for anyone who either doesn't swallow pills or who is, you know, smaller than, say, 110 pounds, right? They're going to be able to get all of the nutrients that they are needing. You know, they're going to get them from their food. Hopefully you're going to be making good choices in that area. But like I said, it's almost impossible to get everything. We need our brains to be fueled. The IQ Mega, I should have put in here, which you can get typically with your A to Z chewables. That's that brain food, right? That's that omega-3 brain food that is so important. And let me tell you, you will notice a difference. If they don't like the taste, put it in a veggie cap. You will notice a difference, guys. The lifelong vitality. This is what I take every day, what my husband takes, what my kids take every day. This is, you would do a half dose if you're like in that 110, 120 pound range. And for my younger kids, we even did this once they could swallow pills at the half dose. After that, you go full dose, which is, you know, two at each of the 2 times a day that you take it. Hugely important. Definitely going to be a powerful tool for support in that nourishing the brain, nourishing the body, and getting us to a place with a strong foundation. The turmeric dual capsules, I love. I'm thinking here a little bit more along the lines of adults, but just that brain, you know, getting rid of that brain fog, supporting brain health, supporting consistent brain health, even into our later years. That is going to be a power tool for you. And then the adaptive supplement is a wonderful tool, especially if someone's inability to focus or concentrate has a little bit of a root sitting in anxiety and stress. Okay. They're distracted by the fact that they're feeling overwhelmed. They're distracted by the fact that, they don't believe they can do it, or they're concerned about what's going on around them, or they're concerned about the result of whatever it is that they're trying to focus on. So the adaptive is not just, I don't know how to describe it. It's not just about, it works to soothe and calm in all areas. I hope that makes sense, right? It's going to be really soothing and calming. When you can't focus and you find, it's that like, I can't sleep. Oh my gosh, why can't I sleep? Oh my heavens. You know what I mean? It's that trap, right? The same thing happens when you need to focus and you can't focus, and, you're in there and you're taking your AP exam and you only have X amount of minutes and right? So that adaptive can really help with focus because it relieves all that other chatter. Vetiver, I cannot tell you if you watched this for any period of time at all and you got nothing else out of it, go get yourself a bottle of vetiver. It needs to be pure. It needs to be that therapeutic grade, but vetiver is the king. This is going to help with sleep. This is going to help with your brain. This is going to help with anxiety. And oh my gosh, is it going to help with focus? So supporting overall brain health and development, again, sleep and overwhelm. Vetiver is, I don't know anyone in my life who I've met who doesn't need vetiver. Okay, so if you're listening right now and you're my friend, yes, I think you need vetiver because I think everyone needs vetiver. It's just the ultimate tool to have in your arsenal and to be able to bring out and use however and whenever you need to. Cedarwood, very, very calming and very soothing. Also very helpful for sleep, incredible for focus, for releasing, right? Releasing all of those, like the chatter, right? Similar to vetiver, release. So vetiver and cedarwood together, a wonderful tool. Add a little peppermint in there too, to sort of crank things up, to kind of keep it as a high energy, right? But really, really wonderful. And then quieting the mind. Intune is a fantastic rollerball blend that you can get that's pre-mixed, which I love because it makes it so easy. You can take it to work with you. The kids can take it to school with them. You bring it out, you put it on your temples, you roll it across the top of your forehead, the brainstem, a nice little smell. Amazing. The first people who I worked with was this wonderful mother and son. And she came to me and we talked and we, decided that Intune would be a good idea for her son. And he took it to school and it worked beautifully for him. One day he was at school and he dropped it and it broke. And he was devastated. And his mom called, and luckily we live in the same town. And she's like, do you have any more Intune? My son, he won't go to school. He's all worried about going to school without his Intune. And I had one, so it all worked out. But it was like, that's how much he knew this worked for him. That the idea of going to school without his Intune was like, not happening. This is my tool. This is what gets me through my day. I'm glad that he found something that was natural and that worked for him. It's great for focus and concentration, quieting the mind and reducing all those distractions. A couple years ago, we came out with something called Thinker, which is very similar to Intune in how it works. However, it is a softer formulation, which simply just means that like there's an intensity to Intune, right? It's a little bit more like pow. And the Thinker is a little bit softer. It's not any less effective. It just uses plants that have a less intense scent. Okay. So if you are try both. If you need a sample, reach out, but try both and see which one works better for you, because some people lean team Intune and some people lean team Thinker. It's going to do all the same things. I feel like the one area that Thinker kind of boosts outside of Intune is it really does support confidence, which is a great thing, right? Confidence is a major player in feeling really good. Next, I have some additional tools to consider. Copaiba. I don't ever walk a day without copaiba and frankincense under my tongue. Copaiba brings me the calm that I need to sort of feel collected and ready to go in my day. Rosemary, all about that memory, right? But also really, really good as a support. It has such a distinct scent to it. This is one I really like to use for during study. like times when the kids or myself, when I'm trying to really work on something that I really need to learn so that I have a good grasp of the topic, that's when I'm bringing out the rosemary. Spearmint, this is going to be the oil of confidence speech, right? Being able to articulate my needs in a meeting or in a conference or in a phone call, which if you know me, you know I'm not down with phone calls, but spearmint helps me kind of get through that communication. For our children, you know, that presentation, taking an exam, what it does is it's going to help gather your thoughts so that you are able to communicate effectively, whether that be verbal, which is its number one way, or writing that paper, getting, you know, not just sitting there staring at the paper going, oh my gosh, where do I start? Where do I start? Where do I start? Really being able to kind of let things flow. On guard. I mean, if you're sick, you're not focused. Okay. It's just how it is. Don't forget the importance of supporting the immune system, especially in times of high stress, adrenaline, and times when you really need to be showing up, you know, with all of your ducks in a row. Having that on guard is going to be a power hitter. Balance, great tool for keeping you feeling like you got both feet on the ground, you're rooted and you're ready. And then frankincense for overall brain health. You know, I kind of bookended this, frankincense and copaiba on either end, because to me, man, there's no way I'm getting through the day focused and feeling, you know, ready for whatever comes my way. And I have 5 kids. Some are bigger now, but nonetheless, they're all here right now. A lot of stuff comes my way in a day, guys. You know, I run a business, I have my own hobbies, I'm trying to get stuff done. A lot of things come across my plate in a day. And that copaiba and frankincense help me, you know, to sort of look at it and delegate what is important, what isn't, and make good, strong decisions and focus on what the needs of my family really are. So again, just to reiterate, think about, you know, if nothing else, when you're thinking about focus and concentration, the thing I want you to come away with today is this: you do have the ability to make a big impact just by the choices you make, the recipe you choose, right? And the tools that you have in your hands. You don't have to feel hopeless. You don't have to feel frustrated. You really can start down a great, you know, path towards supporting this. It might be a long path, okay? And you might see slow but steady improvements, but that's the direction you want to be going in. And everything that we're talking about here can work hand in hand with those interventions that you find that you need to be doing, working with your medical professional. Okay. So reach out to me, reach out to us, and let us know what is it you need help with. And we will be more than happy to help with that. Right. Any thoughts or questions on anything that we kind of ran through? Yeah, go ahead, Miss Diana.
I just wanted to say that you had posted some stuff in our Facebook group about focus, including you know, the like just a bunch of different oils, but also you had included some of the other emotional oils as well. And so I added it to the diffuser today because it's finals week for my college kid. His summer trimester is finals, and man, that just really made a world of difference today, and just like really brought everything together, because he gets test anxiety, and so it was really supposed to be like a roller blend, but it had sandalwood, lavender, Roman chamomile, and bergamot. And we just put that in the diffuser, and then of course luckily had plenty extra to share around the house a little. And it was just like a great way to program all of that, like nervousness and stuff out of that test anxiety. So
that's a great point.
Thank you.
Well, I'm glad that was so helpful. And if anyone wants to join our Facebook group, it's I'll put it down below, but it is just Raven's Nest Essentials members and friends. You can find it and ask to join. But I can't tell you how many times we ran into a situation with our oldest where it's not, I know he knew the material 100%, but he was so focused whenever there was a timed test, okay, he would get himself so worked up into a frenzy about how many more minutes do I have? How many more minutes do I have? How many more minutes, that he would basically fail the test. So I stopped telling him that it was a timed test, or if it was something that I had control over, I stopped making it timed, because when I didn't tell him, he would finish with so much time to spare and nail the test that it was extraordinary. You're just like, okay, well, that's what that was. So, it's great that you have that understanding, obviously, because you homeschooled your son throughout, right? So you have a little bit more intimate understanding of how he works with exams and things. But it's good to sort of maybe work with your teacher if that's a situation, or with yourself if you're the person who's dealing with it, and ask, it wasn't that Gray couldn't focus. It was that he had anxiety from the time.
Yes, exactly. And I think that even though I think the cake and meatloaf analogy applies as well, because you're over there like thinking like, I'm going to read all this material and I'm going to go over these quizzes and exams and labs and whatever, and I'm going to figure out exactly what's going on for this test. But really, maybe what you should be doing, instead of focusing on all of that and cramming that into your brain, maybe you should be trying to calm yourself down, trying to make sure that your body and your mind is ready for the feelings that are going to come upon you when you're facing that, exam, that time, that day, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And it was great. I think that's a great wake up,
Yeah, you're so right, because it is like that. Like, I remember doing that in college, just cramming with coffee and not even sleeping the night before, and going in, because like, you really think you're going to learn something more in those last hours, right? You just trick yourself into thinking this. And in retrospect, what I probably should have done is gone to bed and gotten a good night's sleep and had a good glass of water before bed, or a decent high protein, healthy fat dinner the night before, to set myself up. Because that, which sounds so much more luxurious and relaxing, probably would move the needle as much, if not more, on my score on my exam the next day. You know what I mean? Than stressing myself out and cramming all night. Okay, the college memories maybe wouldn't be as much fun, but nonetheless, like, my GPA probably would have been greatly improved. So yeah, like, thinking about those things, it really does matter. And we can notice, like I said, we can notice these things about ourselves too. I know. So Susan, and I'm so glad Susan's here, because she and I are opposite ends of the spectrum when it comes to when our brain works best. So Susan, really, her brain turns on, what is it, like 9 o'clock at night, Susan? Your brain really wakes up and gets going and able to focus hard?
It kind of depends on my day. Excuse me. Sometimes it's actually 11. I've like got my second wind, and I'm have to like make myself shut down between 1 and 2 to get up and function in the morning, because the world just refuses to be on a night hour schedule like I would be.
I love that though. So I'm the opposite. Like, if I know I have something big that I really need to be like focused, I'll try to go to bed as early. Like, I mean, if I could figure out how to go to bed at 7:30, I would, but I'll get up at 3 and work on everything that I needed to work on, that same thing that you're working on that night before. And my brain, for me, I will get 3 times as much done in the same amount of time, because my brain just shuts down basically at 6:30. Like 6:30.
We're always tag teaming, because I can email you what I got and like, it's 3 a.m. going to bed.
I know. We kind of pass the baton, right? It's a nice relay that we have worked out, but we always laugh. It's like, well, I was waking up, and you're like, well, I was just going to bed. And
right.
But it's just a good example. But we both get a lot done. We both get a lot done. We both have recognized that that's how we work best, and that's what we do. And I think that matters. It's listening to what works for you. Like, if you were just constantly like laying there trying to force yourself to go to bed at 8 o'clock or 9:30 at night, you'd go crazy and you probably wouldn't get anything done. And if I were trying to stay up until 1, 2 in the morning, I know I would not get anything done. So,
yeah. Well, I'm lucky in a situation where I can, set my own hours and and that
For
works
sure.
out well. But there was a time when I did have to actually be at work at 7:30 in the morning. You know, you adjust, but it was not my happy time. I was much happier working.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, paying attention to what works for you, right? And honoring that. And then, you know, you don't just stop showing up for stuff with a cake when what you really need is a meatloaf. Okay. I know it's silly, but it's easy to remember. It's all the preparation. It's everything leading up to it. And honestly, I think it's a good, I want to say 24 hours, but let's go 18 hours, you know, before, you know, our kids competing in the national level of science Olympiad or the world's level of robotics. It was like, you know, we're walking around forcing water down their throats, forcing, you know, go to sleep, eating this. And because they were athletes at that level, you know, needing to show up and perform and do their best and what we knew they were capable of, but the adrenaline would take you down, right? So I don't know. It's just interesting. Now that we have these tools though, you know, vetiver, I think vetiver is the number one thing. That and the LLV or the, you know, chewables, right? But such a great thing to have. Anyway, so thank you so much. This was great. And thank you so much, Diana and Susan, for sharing. And I'm so glad, Diana, that things worked out so well today. And high five on. So that was a final. So summer vacation.
Just in time. Just in time.
Very timely.
This has been the perfect thing for my week right now. Because I'm trying to plan things too. And I've just been completely like scattered and feeling like a crazy person too. So yeah, I think it's just in time. Thank you.
Get out that meatloaf pan and then. All right, we'll catch you guys tomorrow at noon for our Q&A. So thank you.
Good. Bye.